Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've recently been playing around with the Perfect Sentiments stamp as well as hot foil plate, and I noticed when I die cut it, something happened, and I thought I'd make a video just in case this is happening to you. I noticed when I was die cutting the Perfect Sentiment stamp or foil plate image, I would place the die perfectly, and as it rolled through the machine, it was like the paper was moving, and by the end, when I got it die cut, the first part that entered the die cutting machine would be die cut properly, and at the end, the last part that would get die cut had shifted and it wouldn't be laid out properly. So I found something that worked, and I wanted to share that just in case it's happening to other people as well. When I die cut, I typically die cut with my die face down, the blades up, and the paper on top of it. And I think what happens is as that paper moves, it gets shifted over by the weight of the roller in the die cutting machine. And that weight of the roller in the Big Shot that I'm using comes from the top. So I'm going to share with you what happened, and then I'm going to share with you how to avoid it. So this first one here, I'm stamping it with red, and then the second one I'll stamp with green just so that we can tell the difference between the two. I am stamping it twice just to make sure I've got it nice and dark so it can be really visible. And I'm just using some distress ink here. You can use whatever ink you want when you're using your Perfect Sentiment stamps. It doesn't matter. And you can also stamp it and emboss it. When I first used this stamp and this happened to me, I thought maybe I had accidentally stretched or warped the stamp a little bit when I put it on my Misti. But the second time I went to use it, the base of it is really quite substantial, so I think it would take a lot to do that. So I realized that that wasn't the issue. I really love with this set that you get a ton of sentiments stamped all at once, and then when you die cut them, you get a ton of them die cut out. So it's a nice way to create a lot of sentiments, and you can save a bunch for later so they're quick and easy to grab. When I'm lining up my die, I just make sure that I've got an even border around each and every letter, and I also put tape on it to make sure that it doesn't shift or move when I'm putting it in my die cutting machine. So this is how I typically do it. I typically flip it over. I'll have it taped down, I'll flip it over, and then I'll run it through my machine. And then I'll take two pieces out, one from the first part that went in and one from the last part, and you'll see that it shifted over a little bit, and it didn't cut perfectly the whole way. So that's the first area that went in, and that cut perfectly. And you can see here that I've got more of a border at the bottom of that thank you than the top. So now we're going to do it, and I'm going to change something up, and it's going to work a lot better. So now I'm using some green ink. Once again, it doesn't matter what kind of ink you use. Anything will work here. I am going to stamp it twice again just to make sure I get a nice crisp image. Often when you do the first time, it'll be a little bit blotchy, but the second time we'll just kind of fill all those pieces in. But obviously, if you find you have a crisp image the first time, or if you're embossing it, you don't necessarily need to do it the second time as well. So once again, once we've got the crisp image stamped, we're going to take it out of our stamping tool, and we're going to line up our die. And again, we're going to tape it in place just to make sure that it doesn't shift on us, that we've got good placement. I like to use die tape to tape it in place because I can take it off once it's been used, and I can reuse that tape over and over again until it stops sticking or it just doesn't stick very well. If you use painter's tape, often the pressure from putting it through your machine will make it stick so well to your paper that you'll be ripping paper and you can only use it one time. Washi tape would also work for this. So I've got it taped in place, just checking to make sure that it's good placement, and then I'm going to grab my die cutting machine and we will cut it. So as a reminder, that's how I normally would have put it in the machine, with the die side down. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to put that top cutting plate, even though it's slightly warped, I'm going to put it at the bottom. Usually I have my flat one for the bottom, but I like one that I don't really cut into. So I'm flipping my paper so that the die is on the top, and then I'm putting it through. So all that pressure is going to go on the back side of the die, and it's not going to shift my paper over at all. So I'll take one out from the first side of the die that went through the machine, and then I'll take one of them out from the part of the die that came last in the machine. And you'll see how both of them are cut perfectly. It did not shift over like it did on the first one. Now I'll take these as well as two from the first one, and I'll really, just so you can see both of them together and get a clear view of the difference. So if you happen to have had this issue and noticed that you were getting yours shifted, maybe try this change up and you'll see a difference in your die cutting. It die cut so much better the second time where I had things flipped over, even though that's not the way I normally do it. It worked a lot better. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a fabulous day.